As sad as it is, at some point we have to set down our knitting. And what can sometimes confuse knitters is when I pick it back up, which way am I supposed to go? Or which side of my knitting is the yarn supposed to go on? So I want to show you exactly where the yarn's supposed to be when you pick up your knitting when you've stopped in the middle of a row. So first let's take a look at if we were knitting back and forth in rows like this. So, you know, I was knitting, watching TV, and then I went to bed for the night or whatever, and now I'm getting up the next morning and I'm picking my knitting back up off the couch. How do I know where I need to have the yarn and the needles? Well, when you're knitting and you've stopped in the middle of a row, the yarn is going to be coming off of your right needle. And this is true whether you knit using the Continental method or the English method. Now, if you are a truly left-handed knitter in that you knit completely in the mirror image of what traditional knitting is, so you knit truly left-handed, your yarn would be coming off the left needle. But for the majority of people, the yarn is going to be coming off of that right needle. So I would just pick it up and be like, okay, my yarn is in my hand, it's coming off my right needle, and then I would just start knitting. And it doesn't matter, even if I was knitting Continental and knitting this way, and then I stop, set it down. When I pick it back up, either way, the yarn is coming off the right needle. So let's just go ahead and finish this row and then talk about what about if we are on a purling row. So here I am on the wrong side of my work, and I'm working some purl stitches because I'm working mostly in stockinette stitch on this swatch. I just have a little bit of garter stitch edging, but all the middle stitches are purl. So I'm purling along, I'm getting tired, it's the end of the day, now I've set down my knitting. So how do I know where I'm supposed to go when I pick it back up? Well, I ended on a purl row. And so once again, the yarn, it's just coming off the right needle again. And again, this will be opposite if you are a truly left-handed knitter. So I would just pick it back up. My yarn's in the front to purl, and I'm going to keep on purling. And so let's say now you set it down, and now you picked it back up, and maybe you did pick it back up this way. So you picked it up with the knit stitches facing. And you think, okay, this is where I think I left off. Well, you can see my yarn is coming off this left needle. And what happens sometimes is people will pick it up and then start knitting this way, which, I mean, you can, but now you've created this gap here because now you're just starting a new row going in the wrong direction. So I know if I picked it up this way, it's like, this isn't right because my yarn is coming off of the left needle right now, so I need to flip it around. I must have been on the wrong side because now that yarn is coming off the right needle. One other thing I would suggest, of course, is always taking a stitch marker. I like these locking stitch markers here. Just taking one of these and putting it on the right side of my work. Typically when I'm knitting, I always try to stop at the end of a wrong side row, so that way when I pick up my knitting the next day, I always know that I'm just starting a right side row, but obviously there are times when that's not going to happen. You get interrupted by something. You know, you can't always tell people, just wait one more row, right? So I always recommend using that stitch marker to mark the right side because that's going to help you a little bit to figure out your place. So let's just quickly look at it if we were knitting in the round. So if you're knitting in the round, it's exactly the same thing. I'm just picking this up to knit for you, and here's my right side. I'm just doing knit stitches. I did a little ribbing and then some knit stitches. My yarn's just coming off the right needle, and so I'm just going to knit. And again, even if I was knitting Continental, even though the yarn's in my left hand, you can see it's still attached to the right needle. So I hope that helps and that it's given you a little bit of clarity on what to do if you stop knitting in the middle of a row.